Hello, all you beautiful minds and souls. Welcome to another Letter to Self. Today, I want to talk about what we want out of our world, what we want in our personal relationships, what we want according to our finances, our health, our well being, our world, our planet. And what does that look like as an individual? What does that look like for you? What does it look like for me? Because right here, right now, in the midst of all the changes and transitions that's going on in the world, I don't believe we spend enough time having a means of visualizing a positive future for ourselves, actually having the ability to come up with resolutions, if you will, to all of the chaos that's going on in the world, all of the transition that's going on in the world. I've I've had many conversations with people and asking them, what do they see wrong in the world or what needs to be adjusted in the world? And the for the most part, that answer comes immediately from the individual. They know it's very easy for us to see what the heck's going wrong in the world and what needs to change. But if I shift that question just a little from what's wrong to what do you want to see right in the world and how do you visualize that or how do you see that, many times a person will be stumped by that question because we're so stuck in or can be stuck in a cycle of paying attention to everything that is shifting and everything that is wrong and not placing enough attention on what's right and where do we want our world to go. In fact, even throughout our day, a lot of the times we'll spend a lot of time scrolling through social media and seeing all of the disagreements, seeing all of the battles, the protests with this, with that, disagreements, so on and so forth in the world. But do we spend time, literally take time intentionally in our day to focus and visualize what we want to have happen in the world? One of the greatest conflicts in the world right now is our politics, is our government. I believe our government has gotten way too large. We as Americans and our own individual choice and opinions almost don't matter anymore. And we have laws being created in this government right now, every day here in America, that we don't even know are becoming laws. We don't even know what those laws are about. We have this battle between the left and the right when I thought our government was supposed to be working for us, not battling each other. And even when it comes to them battling each other, we don't have a voice in the matter because our government has become too controlling, too um, in our world in such a way that yes, it just become way too controlling. And so I'd like to see our government. Now here's that's the easy part. That's the what's wrong with our government in part. Taking a breath and having an example of what I'm talking about and visualizing what I want from our government. It most definitely, in the first place, I want our government to be smaller. I want to be it more community-like, if you will, so that we come together in smaller sections in our country, whether that's just in our little town or city or even our state, it can be, but that we come together in smaller individuals, as smaller groups, so that our voices can be heard. And then when we do come together, that we come together with an open mind, that we come together with resolution rather than conflict. We come together with a means of supporting each other rather than protesting each other. I think a good way of having that understanding and a visual that I have is understanding sovereignty. That for me, having an understanding of sovereignty means that I have the ability to live my life as I see fit, as long as I don't harm anybody else. That's part of the understanding of sovereignty. I think the more difficult part of sovereignty is I have my right to choose to live the life that I want to, but so does everybody else, even if the way that the other individual is living is in complete disagreement with the way that I live. So having that deeper understanding of sovereignty is a shift I would like to see in our ability to govern ourselves understanding that sovereignty and governing ourselves so that we have the ability to come to the table with a means of and sources for connecting rather than in complete disagreement, so that we're taking more responsibility for ourselves so that we can love and appreciate ourselves as individuals and love others for the same, so that we in this country can come back to understanding America as this beautiful melting pot. Growing up, that's how I understood America, as we had many different creeds and cultures and races and religions, and somehow we had the means of allowing for that without all of the conflict that we have right here right now. So coming back to an older way of understanding America as a whole, and knowing that our differences is what makes us as a country rather than what's creating the division now. Having an understanding of the Constitution, I think, and even myself could really learn a lot of exactly what our Constitution means and what it is to have those rights, if you will, as well as an understanding that we have our own given right to be free and breathe and do what we want to by the mere fact that we exist. I'd like that to be an understanding in our government as well. So that when it comes to things like free speech, it's a given that you have the ability to say what you want. I have the ability to say what I want, whether you're in disagreement with it or whether it may offend you. There is such a thing as free speech, so that our government becomes one that is in support of the people rather than right now one that is in control of the people. So those are a couple of kinds of changes that I'd like to see in our government. Our medical system. Now, there we're finding a tremendous amount of shifts happening there, whether it's COVID, whether it's vaccines, whether it's a tremendous amount of different categories and subjects we could talk about when it comes to the medical system and how they're not quite living up to expectation, to say the least. Rather than focusing my attention on the things that I see wrong in the medical systems, I just want to focus my attention in this video on the things that I want to occur within that system. And one thing, most definitely, is a homeopathic understanding, bringing back nature into our ability to heal ourselves. Not only our ability to heal ourselves, but our ability to stay healthy in the first place, so that things like nature and nutrition we have an understanding of and bring it back to the table with you, so that we utilize our nature, our herbs, our gardens, our food, our nutrients in a completely different way, so that it's preventative. It keeps us healthy in the first place rather than always having to go to the doctor for this ailment or that ailment. When we do find ourselves in need, have an understanding of the body more. I don't think we have a connection with our body like we could, if you will, or we have an understanding of the body like we could. For example, many times when an individual has a fever, the very first thing that they'll run to is something like an aspirin of sorts, so to take the fever away. When in actuality, if we know our physical body and know that when we have a fever, our body is literally going through a process by having the fever to diminish toxins or whatever might be ailing us in that moment. And so it's better to let the fever run its course rather than trying to take it away with an aspirin. So becoming more familiar with our body, having classes on the understanding of our body, having classes about nutrients and how to supply our body with what it needs in the first place to keep ourselves healthy. If we do find ourselves again in need or in ailment, we begin to understand things like Reiki, um, sound energy, healing energy that way, vibrational energy, things like heals, understanding the power of prayer and knowing that prayer can be answered, understanding your own power of thought and how you can keep yourself healthier or weaker by the manner in which you think, but including that and those understandings in the medical system itself, understanding nature and stones and how those can be implemented in certain situations and ailments to help you become healthier once again. Again, just having that connection with the body, knowing how to be preventative with our understandings in the first place, so that we're working from a level of health rather than always trying to become healthy, working at a game that never comes to an end, if you will, in the industry that we live in now, rather than just being and staying healthy in the first place by connecting to nature, connecting to ourselves, and knowing ourselves on a deeper level, so that we almost don't have the medical system like we have it now, but that our own understanding of ourselves becomes its own system. Let's say, another good one that's shifting right now tremendously is the financial system. You see the dollar diminishing in its power and its ability to be used. Things are becoming more and more expensive. You see things like Bitcoin coming in. Lots of shifts and lots of changes there that are making a lot of people right now really nervous. One thing that I'd like to see in that shift and being created is the understanding of natural metals, such as gold and silver, and them, and understanding and becoming to be able to recognize their actual value in a different way than we do money. Right now, money has this power over us, when in all actuality, money is just a piece of power, or I'm sorry, money is just a piece of paper, which in all actuality has no power, has no real value, where things like gold and silver actually do. And in regards to understanding our finances, being able to use things like gold and silver in regards to trade and barter, and even that becoming a bigger understanding in our understanding of our financial system, so that we on our own are creating, once again, our own abundance within ourselves by, once again, what we are able to bring to the table. What are your gifts? What are your talents? Are you an artist? Are you a musician? Do you help in the nursing industry? Or do you have a homeopathic understanding of something? Are you really good with cooking? Are you really good with growing food? Do you raise cattle? Are you a construction worker? Do you happen to be a mechanic? We as individuals, all of us have something to bring to the table to create our own abundance for ourselves, to bring and stabilize, excuse me, our own monetary system within our own means, so that money itself, that mighty dollar, although it doesn't have to be completely diminished from our understanding. In fact, I don't think that's a good idea for it to go that route, but that it plays a smaller and smaller part in our financial system, so that we as individuals play a bigger and bigger part in our financial system by coming responsible to ourselves, by recognizing our own gifts and talents and using that as a means of supporting ourselves by way of exchange, by way of barter. If there's something that I have that you want, if there's something that you want that I need, we can basically and easily just exchange that. We can barter that. We can trade that within ourselves, rather than to always having to depend on going out and buying something, always having to depend on the mighty dollar to get us from one place to the next. And understanding that financial system the way that it is right now, also understanding um, the way the utility system works in our life right now, and bringing in more concepts of free energy, so that we don't have a utility bill that we have to pay for. So that we, once again, are depending more and more on ourselves and each other, rather than a system that's not really in support of us, but a system that's in control of us. This one being the financial system. So those are some of the changes that I visualize, that I use my imagination to really move energy in that direction, so that my future begins to, through my imagination, create some solidity in where we're going. Again, a whole part of this video is talking about utilizing our imagination in a positive way, using our energy in a positive way, so that we are, with intention, utilizing our imagination and vibration to create what we want out of life, not what we feel needs to change, not what is in chaos right now, not what it needs to be destroyed right now and started over. And that's part of the process, but it's also part of the process, again, to make sure that we're using our imagination for ourselves rather than against ourselves. Another one of the changes I'd like to see is in our planet. One, being able to reconnect to our planet so that humanity has a means of reconnecting to the place that we live on, harmonizing with the planet, with Mother Gaia, understanding our planet, the planet that we live on, so that we are once again in connection to it, not disconnected to it by means of cities and so on and so forth, but going back to nature in such a way that we're able to reconnect to her, reconnect to her energy, so that that reconnection, whether it's having a garden or just understanding our food, understanding our nutrients, understanding herbs and medicine that we can bring to our planet, but just reconnecting to her in a certain way that our energies come together so that we see a cleaner water. We see clear water in our oceans, in our rivers, in our streams, and the ability to drink the water once again without being poisoned by the water. One of my images for myself as an individual is out on my land to get a well so that the water that I drink, even from my tap, comes from a natural source, comes from something that I can drink from in the first place, rather than my water having to go through a process to be cleaned. But I'm just able to drink the water straight from the earth. I think that's a beautiful image to have when it comes to water, along with fresh air, clean air, having clean air once again in those beautiful blue skies that I don't see very often anymore, that I grew up with, that I no longer see. So that all of these allergies and so on and so forth that are in the world are no longer here with us. That we just have the ability to breathe in the natural air as it should be, as it always should have been, and will be once again. As part of my image, most definitely. In connection to the planet is having a deeper connection and a deeper understanding, if you will, of the animals on our planet. For one, I think there's thousands of animals on our planet, birds, so on and so forth, that we right here, right now in 2026, don't even know of. Don't even know that they exist in all their beauty and all their glory and all their color. Us becoming more aware of the living creatures on our planet and connecting to them on higher levels rather than survival of the fittest kind of an understanding of our animal world, having an understanding that we have a means to connect with them, to communicate with them through means of our heart, through means of telepathy. In fact, I think lots of people already do that with their pets, have this ability to communicate with them in such a way that they understand and they love their pets, that their pets become part of their family. Wouldn't that be awesome if the entire earth and all its creatures could become family once again? That would be just, I think that would be just one of the coolest things. And so that's one of the ways in which I use my imagination to begin to reharmonize myself with our planet. Having an understanding of the ethers itself, the energy that's all around us constantly in nature and has always been there and it will always be there, so that we can tap into that energy, the ethers of the planet, and recognize again that thing called free energy, so that we don't have to defend on or depend on paying a utility bill and coming in from a cord somewhere. When I look out at the world and I see all these cords and cables and the way that our electricity is run, it just seems so asinine to me. When I know that there's a means of free energy. So what I visualize is people coming together, scientists coming together, artists coming together, and figuring out different ways, shapes, and forms of bringing about and connecting us to this free energy that is all around us, so that we have more of a sense of freedom on our planet, so that we're not tied down to a specific space. We're not tied down to a utility bill. We're not tied down by this thing called electricity because you can only get it by plugging yourself into a cord. but having a deeper understanding that it's all around us, and having and coming together so that we can understand exactly how we take the steps to do that. Free energy. So I'd love to be able to see that in regards to the visions that I have for our planet. Being able to speak to literally the energy of the trees, the spirit of the trees, being that tree hugger that everybody talks about, and everybody, not everybody, but many people make fun of, if you will, when it comes to being that tree hugger. Bringing that back into our conscious awareness, into our understanding that we are here on planet Earth and meant to harmonize, connect with, communicate, love, understand the planet itself, so that when we do that, the colors of the planet become more vibrant, the air becomes more clean, the water becomes more clear, so on and so forth. The animals become more harmonious and closer to our hearts and our understanding of those beings that we have around us, those energies that we have around us, so that we are living with them rather than apart with them. We love them rather than fear them. Those are some of the things that I would love to see when it comes to, and will see, when it comes to the transition of what's happening with us and our planet. Spiritually, I'd like to see us have an understanding of the right to have our own individual relationship with our higher power, with God, with Source, whatever you choose to call your higher power. You have the right to have that personal relationship with it rather than all of the dogma and division that comes from religion, regardless of where you are as an individual. Because you have that spark within yourself, you have your individual right to connect with it however you see fit, however you are able to commune with your higher energies. You have that right without having to explain it to somebody else, without having to get somebody else to believe your own relationship with your higher power, or to understand your own higher power, to have an understanding that we as individuals have the right to have that personal relationship, so that we build a collective understanding of that higher power that is more cohesive, that is more coherent, that allows for individual perspectives in our higher power, as well as differences in opinion to our higher powers, so that we have this open forum and the ability to speak about our spirituality in such a way that we are able to connect rather than be judged by what we believe. Being able to understand that spirituality in such a way, in connection to the body, that we understand our intuition on a much deeper level and use it as a means, as a tool of awareness for ourselves, and the ability to direct ourselves in the world in which we're in, our intuition. Knowing that telepathy is a natural part of ourselves. And when we think of somebody and they happen to call because we're thinking of them, we know that that's a real thing. That's a connection that's actually taking place because we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, not human beings and the other way around. Yes, we are human beings and we have a human body, but that is here in this third dimension to be utilized so that we as spirit can experience this physical world. And going on deeper and deeper levels with that in our own spirituality, so that we can not only have a deeper conversation with ourselves and our higher power, but we begin to understand the healing power within our own God-given right, the human body and spirit, so that we can heal ourselves, so that we can heal each other, so that we can use prayer in such a way that that prayer is answered. We pray with the means of an expectation, because we know that there's a higher part of ourselves that's being heard, and with having an understanding that there's this higher power, higher part of ourselves, excuse me, that's being heard, we have the ability to embody that spirituality, that understanding into this physical world, and use it as a place for empowerment, a place for connection, a means of rejuvenation, so that we are literally creating this body, mind, and soul connection thing with awareness in our spirituality, so that we can begin to once again take responsibility for ourselves, have our own sovereignty, create our own abundance, make our own way in life, rather than having to depend on all these systems that, once again, are not here for us, but they're here to control us. Those are a couple things about spirituality that I would love to see and are going to shift. And I already know is shifting in my individual life. In the past decade, my spirituality has really had this expansion that has allowed me to not only love myself on deeper and deeper levels, but love the world around me on deeper and deeper levels. And I think that in spirituality is huge. I think within all of this, whether we're talking about the government and politics or the medical systems or becoming in contact and connecting with our planet more or technology and our spirituality, I think the one underlying connection that we all need to have with it is to love ourselves, to really, really begin to love ourselves so that we can love the world around us, regardless of what subject that you might be thinking about. Love yourself. Whether you, even if you find yourself in a position where it's something that you don't understand, love the fact that you don't understand it and allow yourself to be there with it so that through that love, you do begin to find means of understanding or connecting to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in that moment. The last one I want to talk about is technology. We have these flop cameras and everything, and we have surveillance going mad and crazy in this world right now, and it's creating a lot of fear in the world of technology right now and with AI. And I completely understand that, and that's why I am purposefully visualizing a different outcome when it comes to our technology and AI, because I want to see AI be in a means of support to humanity rather than in a place of surveillance and control of humanity, so that things like AI are minimized literally in their understanding, so that they're back in service to humanity rather than where they're starting to go now. So that we have the ability, rather than seeing AI as taking over jobs and people not being able to work for the mighty dollar, we see AI being able to come over and take over work so that the human being themselves have more freedom. So that when we have factories and industries and things like that, AI can be in service to humanity so that that individual, rather than getting up in the morning at 8 o'clock and working a 9 to 5, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, has the ability to spend 80% of that time doing what they want to do because they have now taken responsibility for their own actions, understand their own talents, bring forth that individual responsibility, and begin to create that and create that abundance for themselves so that they can allow something like AI technology to take over, help out humanity rather than become terrified by the manner in which we're being surveilled right now. So technology again is another one of those systems that at this present moment is quote unquote in control, when just in itself limiting it and directing it in such a way we can utilize this beautiful understanding of technology in service to humanity rather than allowing it to take over and control humanity. So again, I wanted to share with you today that yes, it's important to recognize what the heck is happening in the world so that we have the ability to change the world. But a big part of taking responsibility for yourself and creating that change, being able to help as an individual in creating that change, is use your imagination wisely. Use your imagination in regards to what you want to have happen into this world rather than using it to place all your attention on how bad things are going to get or how bad things are. Stop, taking a deep breath, and say, you know what do I want out of life as an individual and as part of humanity as a whole? How do I want to see myself, my people, and my planet? How do I want things to work and connect? And really begin to visualize exactly what that looks like for you, because that's how we're going to get from point A to point B in the middle of this great awakening, this great transition, this quickening This enlightenment that's happening is by using, in part, our own individual imagination in service to us rather than against ourselves. Love you all. Thanks for listening.